It's going to be unique training that we're streaming inside of the Think Bigger Real Estate Facebook group. And for those of you that are loyal fans, we're grateful for you and I have a special treat for you today. Called in a favor to someone who has become a friend, someone who is truly an expert when it comes to making good use of social media. Let's be honest. So many real estate agents pay so much attention to social media, yet social media doesn't pay them anything in return. And today we're really going to get into how to authentically show up and feed the algorithm, give these platforms what they want so that you can actually create great business opportunities coming from this. We're not just looking for fame and popularity. We're looking for business. And in today's really exclusive training, we're going to talk specifically about that. So today's guest, her name is Karen Liz Albert. As I mentioned, she's become a friend of mine. She is, for the past decade plus, she's been working knee to knee with real estate agents. Thousands of them, to help them to not only have a stronger and better presence online, but to turn those things into, or that presence into, actual leads. So Karen, such a pleasure to spend some time with you here today. Thank you for coming on into our private community here.
Always my pleasure, Justin. Thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to share this time with you and your community. Appreciate it.
It's our pleasure. Let's dive right in, because I know many of the folks at home, right? They're busy real estate agents. They want to make the most use of time. So let's give them kind of value packed. If you were speaking and had a short period of time to really condense down the most valuable nuggets. Yeah. And I know, as we've discussed that, you said it's feeding the algorithm, Justin. So what does that mean? What does it mean to feed the algorithm?
Sure, absolutely. And I get all the time, I get like, Karen, I hear you. I understand. I need to be on social media. It really is a very important, critical component of a real estate professional's marketing, budget and strategy. But, I either get I'm on it all the time and I'm a hamster in the wheel kind of a thing, or I'm just avoiding it because I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, right? We kind of fall in either one of those buckets. And the two things that tend to cause an agent to fall into either one of those categories is, one, not having a social media strategy, and two, not having the simple steps to execute that strategy. So let me expand a little bit on what I mean by strategy. So whenever you're using any social media platforms, there's two markets that you want to make sure that you're taking into consideration. The market that knows about you, so your friends and your family members and your followers, and the other is those that don't know about you. Almost a little more important, right? You really want to make sure that you are showing up and connecting with as many possible social media users that have a need or an interest in what it is that you have to offer. And the one component that controls how you show up in front of either those that know about you or don't know about you is the algorithm. So the algorithm basically in every social media platform has one primary goal. And that goal is to make sure that it creates a very positive experience for all of the users, because if it's not positive, then they start to leave, right? So the way that the algorithm creates a positive experience for the users is that it makes sure that the information that shows up on the user's newsfeed is right in alignment with what that user has an interest in. So you and I, Justin, are dictating all day long what we see show up on our newsfeed, because we tend to post about and engage with content that's very much in alignment with our interest and our lifestyle or our profession. So this is actually being monitored by the algorithm. It sounds very Big Brother, right? But we are being watched. And Zuckerberg is spending millions of dollars on this predictive behavior analytics because it wants to be able to proactively show you information on your newsfeed that it thinks is going to be create a positive experience, right? And we know this to be true. It spills outside of social media. You go to Google, or now these guys are listening to us, aren't they? So you search for a pair of shoes.
Oh, looks like I lost her. While she's coming back, let me just share kind of some of my thoughts. I love what she said about, there's a couple of things that are super important. Number one is having a plan. And number two is having tactical steps to implement that plan. And I would 100% agree with that, is that all too often we've had this feeling that we need to be on social media, yet we're not actually going there with purpose. I would say you can be in all the right places with all the right people even, But if you don't actually come with a purpose, the reality of you getting what you went there to get, and to give the value that you went there to give is going to be off. You're going to miss it, right? Oftentimes, I'll talk with people who spend lots of time on social media and they really get very, very little out of return, but they know that they need to be there. They have this feeling that I'm supposed to be there. Whereas others, they spend very little time on social media, but it's very purposeful. It's very activity based and very proactive. And what ends up happening is that they end up getting a big result out of that. Here's a key lesson that I believe that Karen will reinforce this as soon as she's able to join us here again. And it's this, is that ultimately the purpose of social media, yes, is to own a bigger and bigger piece of space or real estate in someone's brain. In other words, to not be forgotten. But ultimately the best result, the best end result of any social media interaction is to create conversations. One of my coaches and mentors, Sharon Srivatsa, teaches that conversion only happens in conversation. In other words, if we're trying to convert people into followers and more importantly, customers, then we have to be engaging in a conversation with them. Very likely, if ever, will people just simply follow you and all of a sudden sign a contract to be in business with you. At some point, they have to move through the funnel of seeing you, remembering you, getting value from you, interacting with you, having a conversation with you, and then converting into a client. And so if we don't have that end in mind, right? If we don't have this ability to have that end in mind, to where we're actually getting people to a conversation, then we're missing out. And these algorithms, they favor when people are having conversations, right? They favor real connection. And so in order for you to have the ability to really get the most out of it and feed the algorithm, I recommend people spend less time talking into the megaphone of social media, right? Post daily, sure. But stories daily, sure. But outside of that, if you're on social media, you're very much focused on creating conversations. In other words, direct messages, right? In other words, actually being engaging with people. If that's the end goal, right, then you should put out content that's relevant, about value-based content that's helpful for the people that you serve, number one. Number two, go to their content. Use it as a way to listen to them, right? Engage with them, comment on their stuff, comment on their stories. And then lastly, is to actually engage in conversations with them. So I'm going to bring Karen back on. It looks like she is reconnected. Karen, I don't see your beautiful face, but we do. Oh, there we go. Awesome. I love it.
I'm so sorry about that. You got to love
that's okay.
technology, right?
I just picked up and ran with it. So
I saw it was like, great. Okay, fantastic. Yeah.
So
everybody was probably like, wait, what was she going to say? So anyways, what I was saying is, again, deepest apologies. What I was saying is that all of the activity that every user is doing is being monitored so that the algorithm can display content that is going to add value, right? So what happens is once a user gets a sense, once the algorithm gets a sense of what the user has an interest in, I realize my light's not on, it goes and scans the millions of business pages, or so Facebook business pages, Instagram business pages, LinkedIn profile pages, and it's scanning these pages so that it can profile your page to get a sense of, there's 5 questions that you always want to make sure that you're effectively and consistently answering so that these algorithms know who you are and how to connect you. It's number 1, who you are. Number 2, what you do. Number 3, how you do it. Number 4, who you do it for. And number 5 is where you do it, if geography is relevant to your business. And so when you are effectively communicating the answers to those 5 questions, a lot of times you want to make sure you've got those keywords in your social media bio. Think about the hashtags, the keywords, all of that is helping you to feed the algorithm with the data that it is needing so that it can start to match your content up with a community that it thinks might have an interest in what you have to offer.
I love this, Kara, because I think all too often we work cryptically because we swim in the ocean of real estate, and we just assume that everybody knows what we do. It's been humbling at times where I'll sit down with people with the hours and hours and hours of content that I put out there. They'll say, "Now, what is it that you do for a living?" And I'm like, "Oh my goodness."
Right.
All right, back to square one. Back to these 5 questions, right? Which who are you? Like, what do you do? How do you do it?
Yeah.
Who do you do it for, and where you do it? Like, if that's not very clear in what you do, and again, as like residential real estate agents, people that we're serving, right? And you can go back and ask yourself those questions. Is if someone had never met me before, or maybe I hadn't seen them since high school or whatever, would they be able to start looking at my posts and be able to say like, "Oh, I know what you do, and I know who you do it for"? Like, would it be really clear to them, right? Or are we putting out content that's cryptic, which
right? And you make a good point too, because when you are, it goes back to those 2 markets, right? So those that know about you. So if you become the shiny object and you draw them over and they take a look at you, you really better make sure that you are showing up in a way that is going to help them clearly understand the answers to those 5 questions and also be impressed with what it is that they see. There's a lot of realtors that I do the initial sort of consulting and look at their social media, and it's really common. They have this picture of a beautiful house, right? Or a for sale sign on the header banner image of their Facebook page. And that's fantastic. But what I want to be able to know if I go to your page is, and this is really coming back to those 5 questions, the who you do it for and the where you do it. Those are the 2 that tend to get neglected the most. We want to be an everything to everybody, right? Mm-hmm. And the algorithm doesn't have a profile called an everybody. And so what you want to do is really spend some time unpacking that. Who is it that you want to attract? And geographically, where do you want to really be able to dominate that particular neighborhood or that area or community or whatever it is? Because yes, I ask all the time, agents, who do you ideally want to attract as a result of using social media? And they're always like, anybody with a pulse, right? And I get that from a business development growth perspective. Does not work for search engine and algorithm. You have to be clear on the who. And then also, same thing with geography. The visual that I like to use is the dartboard. So you have the wide ring, the center, and then you've got your bullseye. Mm-hmm. The bullseye is the hyper local geographical pocket that you really want to be able to show up in front of as the agent, that they say, this person really has their finger on the pulse of what's going on in this area. And it's a heck of a lot easier to know what's going on in an area when it is a smaller geographical footprint, right? Than I'm in Colorado. A lot of agents that I work with here, they're like, oh, I'll go anywhere. Okay, probably true, but let's help you be successful. Let's help you craft a strategy that you can actually execute and start to see some return on. And then that also goes to the who. So if you find a particular geographical area that you really want to focus on, maybe you live there and you've lived there and your kids have gone through the school systems and you're on boards and you volunteer and you really feel like you're very invested in this area. That's fantastic. Let's look at the demographics and who do you want to attract in that demographic? They don't really think a lot of times that they can be kind of picky. They can choose. You don't have to work for everybody. And like attracts like. So looking a lot at your own lifestyle and your interests and your behaviors organically, that works really well in attracting a very similar demographic as well. Great story that I like to tell is an agent that was in Los Angeles. He was brand new. We discovered in doing some strategy work with him that he was a newlywed. He and his wife absolutely loved pets, like fostered kittens and donated money and time and all this stuff. And so we decided to brand him as the realtor for pet lovers. And so we had paw prints. We had little cartoon characters of pets. He took a little step further and he actually converted his Jetta into a 4Runner and converted the whole back of it as like the pet caravan, right? He had the leashes and the treats and the cat carriers. He called me a couple of years ago and said, I took a cat around to look at properties, because you don't want to discount how intense they are, right? Pet lovers love their pets. And then he also, here's the beauty: when you get clear on who, you can now identify the other professionals that cater to that who as well. So taught him how to take his social media pages and start to connect with the vets and the dog walkers and, all the others, the groomers that cater to that same community, so that he was able to sort of create this outside of extension value added. Like, I'm going to be a realtor, but here's a whole list of vetted services, right? And I refer business to them, and it becomes, quid pro quo. And think about the content that he posted. It wasn't all about real estate. It was content that he knew the algorithm has a whole bunch of pet lovers in his geographical area, right? So the algorithm is like, oh, cool, you're posting stuff that's going to add value to the pet lovers. I've got pet lovers. I can start to add your content onto the newsfeed of these pet lovers. Now, we branded it so that the post did clearly show that he was a realtor, but you get a little bit more creative and a little more strategic if you don't use your social media to be all about you and in everything to everybody.
I think, one of the things I love about this, Karen, is the fact that if you try and be famous for something that people can't say in, 3, 4, 5 seconds, you won't be famous for anything, right? They have to be able to like, oh, Karen, she's the social media real estate person, right? Like, they just have to know something about you, right? Justin, he's the think bigger guy, right? Like, there has to be something that you're famous for. And that actually needs to lead people, the right people, into your world that you can then serve. So I would encourage everybody that's listening here today, some really tactical takeaways that Karen can I think guide us to, right? Is it or that she's guided us to, which is ask yourself the question, what am I famous for? Right? And then go talk to people around you and ask their opinion. What am I famous for? How am I known? And it might be totally different than what you think. And you might realize like, I'm not famous for anything, right? No, I say fame, I'm not talking about celebrity fame. I'm talking about like, how are you, like, what do people associate you with?
Yeah.
And is that
when your name comes up, right? What do people say when your name comes up?
Yeah. Like, how do you help people? What is it that you do? Right. And when you can really hone in on that, and I love it, Karen, because all of a sudden, all the mystery behind what do I post, like who am I talking to? It goes away, right? Because I think one of the biggest challenges that we face when our social media efforts are not productive is that we're talking to too many people at once, right? Whereas if we can say, this is my avatar, this is the person that I serve. Now all of a sudden it's like, well, what do they want to hear on Tuesdays? What do they want to hear on like?
Well, if you think about, and if you think about like, let's forget about the fact that we're even talking about social media right now. Let's just go back to like marketing 101, right? Every single marketing campaign is written with the consumer in mind. So I always say you're never going to see a sugary cereal box with a mom doing yoga on the front. That's not the demographic. They got the Tony the Tiger or whatever it is, right? So social media is no different. You just have to take a step back and work on who it is do I want to attract. And then you build everything from there, and you just fold in the social media platforms as marketing tools that you're going to use to attract that particular, community and demographic. A great exercise that I also do with a lot of my clients is, because they always are the question of, who do you want to attract? They feel as if they get it, they know they need to, but they just really kind of struggle with the answer to that. So one of the exercises that I have them do is to write down on a piece of paper the names of their top 10 clients. And I'm talking like repeat customers, they refer business, they're your cheerleaders. You almost feel like you have a personal relationship with them, and write those names down, and then look at similarities around demographics, age, race, marital status, profession, income, right? And then look at what I call psychographics. So that's where do you spend your time and your money? What's your lifestyle and your hobbies? And it's fascinating to see what bubbles up to the top, because you'll find at least one or two that you'll say, wow, I didn't really realize that I have consistently been servicing fill in the blank, whatever that box is. Recently did this with an agent in Dallas. Single moms with little kids. That's who she had been servicing. And she never really did that exercise, but guess what she is? She's a single mom with little kids. And so like attracts like, you never want to discount that. And it's so much easier, right, for her to have a conversation with that demographic because she's experienced in that.
Yeah.
Like, I got it. I understand what you're going through and I can help you address this because I've been there and I understand what your concerns or needs are or whatever, you know.
Well, I think the most powerful form of marketing and sales is to say, I've been where you're at.
Yeah.
And I can take you to where you want to go because I've been there. Right. And I think just like you said, for example, this single mom, right? She already has a network of people and businesses around her, as you described earlier with, you know, with the kind of the pet focused real estate agent, is that it becomes so natural to add value to these people.
Absolutely.
Right? They're your people and you get them. And the things outside of real estate that they need, you already have. Like, it's just such a natural extension. I think one of the things that I'll teach our private clients is that there's a couple of different things that you should be looking at. Number one is, who are the people that, number one, can actually do business, like that fill my bank account, right? And number two, who are the people that fill my heart, the people that I love to serve. When you can couple those two together, it's a great life. It becomes very natural for you to show up and serve people because you love it, and then the business will follow, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that.
So I hear that coming out in taking those same principles and applying them to the social media world, right? Who are the people that I love that are actually going to be transacting? Like, how can I show up and serve those people? And most likely you'll find that, like you said, they're very similar to people that are like you, right? That have the same needs and concerns, and that you've been down that journey and helped other people down that journey. So it's only natural for them to continue to go find more people to do exactly that.
And what she ended up doing is she hired a bonded licensed babysitter. So she's able to go to them and say, I got you, right? I understand. Yes, I am your realtor, but I want to expand beyond that. And I want to really be able to help you. So we don't have to take the little kiddos running around to look at property with us, or what are you going to do when you got to list the house and y'all have to be out, right? So it's thinking about who you want to attract and all the needs that demographic has, and sort of like Joe, the realtor, converting his, pet caravan. It's just thinking a little, but it's so much easier when you get clear on who, and then, and then using social media and all that stuff. That's a lot of fun stuff too. There's some fabulous features and tools and stuff that they all have that can help you really start to show up in front of that demographic in that community. But step one, you gotta figure out who and where, and get clear on that and kind of that pocket, right? That bullseye.
Well, I think one of the unique things about what you just described right there is that when you're in a competitive world, right, where there's as many agents as there are transactions, right, which is very similar to kind of what we've described here in the past, is that when you have that environment, the way is not to lower your prices. It's not to drop like your family on a Sunday night and go show home. It's to say, okay, I can take care of them with real estate. Yes. What other concerns do they have, right?
Exactly.
What are the things that are not expected that all of a sudden serve my clientele? And I love how well you gave us that example. When you start to do that, all of a sudden you're not competing, right? You don't have to lower your price because you're valued, you're valuable, you're remembered, you're valuable.
Exactly.
I'd love to have, for people that say, like, I'd love some help with this, right? What does that look like? How can people contact you? What's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, thank you. It's really as simple as behindyourcurtain.com. And right there, first thing on the fold is schedule a free consult with me.
Cool.
So I'll take a look at what you have going on and where you're wanting to go and see if I can, kind of help you get there. And I would love to. Yeah.
I love it. And I think, guys, the most important takeaway is that there's an opportunity cost to being online without a purpose, right? Everybody knows that they need to have a presence online, right? And I would say like 90% of agents have submitted to that, and they have some sort of time online. If your dollar per hour, which should be north of $100 per hour, like period, it ought to be. If not, then we'd have another conversation. But you think about that.
Then you just talk to you.
Right. Let's get clear on what that number is, and let's make sure your activities are aligned with that. And aimlessly strolling through social media is like you wouldn't pay anybody to do that. and therefore the marketplace won't pay you to do that. But if you go in with purpose, as I described when I kick this off, is that there are agents out there who spend tons of time on social media and they get no return. And there are other agents who spend very little time, but it's highly concentrated, very purposeful, interacting with the right demographic and generating conversations that actually turn into conversions and appointments. Like those agents, they do what Karen's describing here.
Yeah.
And they get going down that path where it's, I'm on social media from this time to this time, and here's what I'm doing during that time. When you start to think like that, these tools become some of the most powerful inventions that real estate agents would have ever dreamed of having. Right?
Oh my gosh.
Or they can be a black hole.
Absolutely. We live in such an unprecedented time right now to have these tools, which are free, accessible to us, but it's to your point, you can't afford not to be on them, but you also can't afford not to have a strategy and how to effectively and efficiently, because it's all about developing that competitive advantage, because you are being looked at. Don't discount the fact that if you passed out your card and someone was remotely interested, they go and check you out first. And it used to be that they'd go to websites. It's completely reversed now within like the past 10 years or so. Now it's social media. And they're going to go and they're going to look at your reviews and they're going to check you out. And I've had agents reach out to me that have said, Karen, I need your help because I literally lost a listing. They told me, they looked at me and they looked at Nancy, and they were more impressed with Nancy's online presence, which proved that she knew how to market herself, which proved that she would know how to market their listing. So you don't want to discount that. And it doesn't take a lot to gain that competitive advantage. It's just get off the hamster wheel or get off the avoidance space, right? And get clear on what's your strategy, and then create a very impressive looking brand. So when people do go and check you out, and also help Google too, right? Because the more cohesive you have with all of your naming conventions and your keywords and your hashtags and all of that, people plug in your name and it should be like bang, 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 bang. All of your presence shows up in that expensive real estate of Google. And it's not hard. It's just knowing how to do it, right? And hiring professionals that can help you do that and get there.
Karen, thank you so much for joining us today, adding your expertise to our Think Bigger real estate community. We're grateful for you. And guys, anybody here that's like, I need that and I need help doing it, behindyourcurtain.com is where you'll find Karen and a free consultation to get you started. So Karen, appreciate you very much. And to everybody listening today, this is a request you hear me say often, and it's this: go think bigger. Karen, thanks for helping us do that today, my friend. I appreciate you very much.